I, 35 female, met my husband Vince, 36, when he saved me from drowning at a pool party when I was 18. I took him out for lunch the following week to thank him for saving me, and we soon fell in love and began dating. At the time, Vince worked a blue-collar job while I was studying at university. We ended up getting married, and Vince supported me throughout my entire education, up until I got my PhD. Vince always told me that he wanted to study at university, but had learning disabilities that made it difficult for him to study in a classroom. At times, he was embarrassed by the fact that he had to work twice as hard as the people around him, but I always found that to be admirable about him. When I finished my studies and got a well-paying job, I convinced Vince to give his dream of studying another go. Last year, he was finally accepted into a nursing program at our local university. He's working hard to achieve his dream, and I'm incredibly proud of him. Last week, my friend Alba, 36 female, visited with her son so our children could play together. Alba was my roommate during my first year at university. She began dating her husband Leo around the same time I started dating Vince. Leo was an obnoxious law student who later became an even more obnoxious attorney. He was a know-it-all who prided himself on his intelligence, which, for some reason, attracted Alba. At the time, Alba would sometimes tease me that I could do better than Vince and would offer to set me up with one of Leo's law school buddies, but I would always refuse, and she eventually dropped the subject. Alba and Leo are currently going through a nasty divorce that stems from him cheating on her. Quite frankly, he's dragging her through the mud and is using connections to try and leave her as penniless as possible. As we were chatting and catching up, Alba began to express concern over the fact that my eldest son, Pretween, was recently diagnosed with dyslexia. Alba began telling me how she's worried that my son will be academically challenged like his father and what that could entail for his future. Before I could respond, she told me that I should have married someone smart while I had the chance so that I would have kids like her. Alba's son is an incredibly bright boy and a straight-A student. I told Alba her advice was unnecessary and reminding her where marrying for intelligence got her. I then proceeded to tell her that I would rather have my son grow up to be an honest, hardworking person like his father than an academically gifted jerk who wasn't smart enough to know sleeping with his secretary could have consequences on his marriage, like her husband. Alba was deeply hurt by what I said and stormed out with her son. Some mutual friends are now chiming in and telling me that I was too harsh on Alba for using her failing marriage to prove my point and that I should apologize. So am I the idiot? She's going through a hard time with her divorce, and mentioning her failed marriage to prove my point was a low blow. Not the idiot. She lobbed the first grenade, pretending to profess concern for your son and basically blaming any issues on your husband, and literally saying you shouldn't have married your husband nor had your kid and married someone else and had a different, better kid. That's awful. She attacked your innocent young child's intelligence and basically said his future accomplishments won't matter when compared to her own kid. Hopefully, Alba can get over herself because otherwise her son will have no friends. It might be sort of an emotional defense reflex thing on her end to keep her from acknowledging the fact that she married a really awful person. You could have taken a minute before reacting in the heat of the moment, but I won't fault you for sticking up for your husband, especially for your son. Your husband sounds amazing, and I hope he thrives in his nursing program. Totally. Honestly, I'm just wondering why OP's friends are so awful. Alba told OP she should have married someone smart, so her children could be more like Alba's. Essentially, she was saying her kids are better than OP's. I don't even have kids, which made me want to throw my phone across the room. You do not criticize someone else's child in this manner, and OP's friends think she was too harsh? OP, you don't just have a friend problem. You have a friend's problem. I don't know anyone who would expect someone to just sit there politely as a friend insulted their child's intelligence. Find new friends. Yeah, imagine marrying an arrogant idiot of a man who cheats on you and then proceeds to make your life as miserable as possible by smearing your name and breaking you financially, and then tell your happily married friend she should have followed in your footsteps? The nerve. The mother-kissing nerve. Update. Am I the idiot for reminding my friend that she married for intelligence and look where it got her? First of all, I want to thank you all for your replies. Many of you asked why Alba and I remained friends, despite her previous remarks. Alba and I grew apart during our third year at university. We only remained friends by association, since we had a lot of mutual friends. We became close again after our son started playing basketball at the local community center and became friends. I figured that becoming a mother made her more mature, and she didn't give me any reason to suspect otherwise. I've decided to send her a message saying that the way she spoke about my husband and son was unacceptable, and that she's no longer welcome to my home. However, I don't want our sons to lose their friendship, so I'm willing to remain civil around the kids and still organize playdates. She hasn't replied to me yet, but I truly hope she loves her son enough to put her ego aside and remain civil for the sake of our kids. I have yet to notify Vince about this entire situation, since he's vigorously studying for an important quiz that's coming up next week. I know that if he heard what Alba said about him and our boy, it would upset him and prevent him from continuing to study properly. I'll probably update him next week after he finishes the quiz. My wife, 35, and I, 38 male, have been married for almost 14 years. In 2019, I decided to open up a small business. During the global issue, I faced a lot of financial difficulties. I couldn't let it fail since I had sunk our savings and my parents' investment into the business. I worked 80-hour weeks and never took a day off. It was very rough, but worth it. As a result, my wife and I have a good standard of living, but I still must work crazy hours to maintain it. Back to the question. My wife was at work when she suddenly felt very dizzy and compassed. Coworkers took her to urgent care where they determined it was probably stress-related and not a real health issue. When she was there, she asked them to call my friend Steve. He's a great guy, and he popped over to make sure she was all right and drove her home. When I came later that day, she just said she had a small medical emergency and that she called Steve. I asked her why she had called Steve, and she said he would immediately help her. I felt like she was being passive-aggressive about it and called Steve as a lesson. I called her out on it, and she stormed off in a huff. Her friends have been texting me and calling me an idiot. Am I the idiot for calling my wife passive-aggressive after she had a medical emergency and called my friend instead of me? Edit. I would have helped in a medical emergency had she called me. You are the idiot. She's just had a terrifying crisis, and your first response was to worry about what message she was sending you with who she chose to call? You probably want to seek marriage counseling about trust issues. The fact that she doesn't see you as someone who will show up for her may be a misunderstanding on her part, or it may be something real, but choosing to focus on that when she's just been in the hospital is incredibly petty. He cares more about his wife being passive-aggressive instead of caring about the fact that his wife doesn't even feel like she can trust him to take off for a medical emergency. He's a horrible husband, and even with marriage counseling, he'll be lucky if she stays with him. According to him, it was not a real health issue. Anyway, stress is a medical condition, and if it's causing physical symptoms, this wasn't a scare. This is real. Both of your lifestyles need to change. You're an absent partner due to your work schedule. You're so stressed out from working that you called her passive-aggressive for asking for help when she needed it. It's called a darn budget. Downgrade so you both can be healthy. And when I say healthy, I mean physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially. I, 28 female, am pregnant and about to deliver our first baby. My mother-in-law wants to name our baby the name of her dead daughter. My husband and I dated for 8 years and decided to get married. Everyone was happy. Our wedding planning was in progress, but due to an unfortunate accident, my sister-in-law passed away before our wedding. Our wedding was postponed to 1 year so everyone would have time to grieve. After the wedding, all the relatives from my husband's side wanted us to get pregnant immediately. They wished that it would be a daughter. My mother-in-law tried to get us pregnant right away so that our daughter would be reborn. There was a lot of pressure. Gradually, after a year of being married, we were pregnant. We were delighted. I truly wished it would be a baby boy, not a girl, because of my mother-in-law. I feel like I would be depressed if it was a baby girl due to my mother-in-law portraying my baby as her daughter. As a side note, I didn't know the sister-in-law that well, as my husband and I were in a long-distance relationship. And my sister-in-law passed away before I could even meet and get to know her. Am I the idiot for not wanting a baby girl so much that my mother-in-law wouldn't have the chance to name her? Edit. Husband is supportive. He and I have already spoken to mother-in-law about not wanting to give our baby her daughter's name. Still, mother-in-law doesn't seem to respect boundaries, stressing me during my pregnancy. I don't know how to be clearer to her. Hubs and I can be sterner, but we don't want to end up being the idiot to a grieving lady. Any advice on keeping the mother-in-law in line without disrespecting her would be appreciated. Grow a spine. Tell mother-in-law you're using a different name, and you will teach your daughter all about her wonderful aunt who passed away, but name your baby what you want. And if mother-in-law decides to give her another name, if a girl, just tell her you're not going to do that, or we'll go no contact. It's that easy. Don't forget to tell the hospital staff not to let her in the room and away from the birth certificate. Double check it, always. Grow a spine? This would solve 90% of these stories. Instead of worrying about your baby's gender, maybe worry about your lack of inner strength. You don't let your mother-in-law overrule you when it comes to matters concerning your own baby. You overrule her, like a parent should. Also, you are dangerously creating expectations this way. Your mother-in-law would continue to meddle if you let her. Get rid of that jellyfish spine and grow a real one. This entire issue is just ridiculous. Exactly. If you and your husband don't shut this line of thinking down now, before the baby's born, it'll be bad for that baby either way. Let's say it's a boy. They will be disappointed. Then if there's a girl later, she'll be treated better than the boy. If it's a girl when they're expecting the reincarnation of their dead daughter, suppose your baby girl starts to grow into a different person, pretty much guaranteed than their dead daughter. In that case, she'll then be a disappointment. This is about so much more than a name. It's protecting your child and children from people struggling with grief. The grief is understandable. Their solution to it is not. Not the idiot for your concern. You are the idiot if you and your husband don't address this now, before the birth. This is about your child's well-being. My female 27, husband 28, is clearly not the favorite child of my mother-in-law, 54. She has 3 sons, and my husband is the oldest and the only one not from her current husband. She separated from his father while she was pregnant, and shortly after this, met her current husband. After a while, they became parents to both my husband's younger brothers. They're 6 and 4 years younger than my husband. The relationship between my husband and mother-in-law is not really bad. She's not evil or trying to hurt him, but she isn't very affectionate towards him. All 3 of them moved away for university, and my mother-in-law sends packages of sweets, clothing, or something like this to his younger brothers. My husband is yet to receive a package except for his birthday. His brother got a brand new iPhone, 2 expensive pullovers, and 1 perfume for his last birthday. Similar to the other brother, and I would guess most of the time for their birthday, it's something in this price range. She writes a nice card or a personal letter for them, and sometimes bakes something like cookies as well. My husband is sad every year. It's not about the money, but 2 years ago, he got a €40 gift card from an online shop sent via the online shop. I tried to talk to him about it, but he was so hurt that he didn't want to talk about it. I waited a few weeks and tried to talk to him again, but he refused. Last birthday, I gifted him a little vacation and texted my mother-in-law that she could gift him a tour of one of the museums he wanted to see there. He dreamt of going to this city for years. It wouldn't have been expensive, but thoughtful, and would probably have made my husband happy. She said she already had something. It was a candle. He's not very into candles, and a shower gel. This year, a package arrived 2 days before his birthday. It was small, and I could see that it came straight from an online shop. We weren't at home, and our neighbor took it. When I came home, my neighbor told me that I'm lucky to see him because he's away for the weekend and we would have missed the package. I just knew it would hurt my husband. I asked him if he could keep the package a little longer so my husband would get it after his birthday because it's probably something disappointing from my mother-in-law. He laughed and agreed. One day before his birthday, I told him the package from his mom arrived, but our neighbor was out of town. He had a great birthday, full of friends, lovely cake, and gifts, and didn't think about it one time. Our neighbor gave it to him yesterday, and joked that his dad is also bad at picking gifts. My husband got curious and asked him about his words, and my neighbor told him everything. He talked to me while his brother, who was there for the party and stayed with us for the week, was present and said he understood it. His brother told my mother-in-law, who's now furious with me. She texted me and the group chat with his family lit up. She said I was mean and spoiled and had no right to hide the gift. So, am I the idiot? Edit. His brothers never said anything about the different presents. Now his brother said that he found it harsh for me to hide a present. My husband is older, and apparently that's why it's justified not to get an expensive or thoughtful gift. Funny enough, we've been together for nearly 10 years, and he never got a good present, even though he was the same age as his brothers. One of his brothers also works like him, so it's not the job that makes the difference. Not the idiot, and you should probably put the same effort into her gifts as she puts into hers. I think an oil funnel from a local gas station would be an appropriate and oh-so-practical gift. If you're feeling particularly generous, toss in a quart of motor oil too. Stop gifting her altogether and send back her gifts as well. I think I understand why he assumes extra thought might be the key, but in reality, it isn't doing any good. From the sounds of it, your husband is the reminder of a relationship that was bad in some way, but that isn't his problem to deal with. It's hers, and she needs to own it. Since your mother-in-law lit the fire in the group chat, I'd respond in a similar thread. I'm a petty witch, though. Something like, I'm sorry you're offended, but for years, I've witnessed the absolute sorrow your gifts have caused my husband. As his wife, one of my main objectives is to protect him, and I have to continue to be the villain in your story to be the hero in my husband's. Then let me grab my pitchfork and cape and minions. I didn't marry you. I married him. I don't know. I'll say that I wouldn't care what mother-in-law says, thinks, or feels. I hope your husband realizes she's just an idiot and stops letting her manipulate his feelings. He focuses on those who do care about him. You should force him into therapy. Seriously. He presents a very unhealthy attachment to his abusive mother and his similarly abusive brothers. They like how things are. Otherwise, they would stand on his side. Update. Thank you all for the messages. I wrote in the family group chat a good mixture of what you all said. I was just trying to save my husband's birthday because he's been sad for years because of his parents that do not match the energy of his brothers. And it's not about the money, but about thought. I listed everything he got versus everything his brothers got. In return, I got thrown out of the group chat. My husband left the chat after that. My mother-in-law wrote me in private that I'm a toxic person who destroys my husband's relationship with his family, but we chose to ignore that and go low contact for a while.